When Canadian officials began taking Sweden's Jas-39 Gripen seriously, not as a symbolic alternative, not as leverage in negotiations, but as a viable replacement for the CF-18 fleet, the temperature inside defense circles shifted almost overnight. What had been framed publicly as a routine procurement process suddenly became something else entirely. Conversations grew sharper, messages moved off official channels, and in private exchanges between Washington, Stockholm, and Ottawa, diplomatic courtesy gave way to unmistakable warning. At the center of the storm stood two aircraft, the American-built F-35 Lightning II and Sweden's Saab Jas-39 Gripen. On paper, this was a technical competition. In reality, it was a confrontation over sovereignty, alliance power structures, and who ultimately controls the operating backbone of modern air forces. Pentagon representatives, according to defense insiders, signaled through Swedish intermediaries that choosing the Gripen would carry consequences. These were not public threats, no podium statements, no press briefings. Instead, the warnings were calibrated to apply pressure without leaving fingerprints. Intelligence cooperation could be affected, interoperability might suffer, joint operations could become more complicated. The implication was clear: deviation from the expected path would not be cost-free. Ottawa did not blink. Instead, Canadian leaders articulated a principle rarely spoken aloud by close American allies: air sovereignty must remain under national control. That sentence echoed far beyond procurement committees. It struck at the architecture the United States has carefully built since the end of the Cold War, an alliance ecosystem where core digital infrastructure flows through American-managed systems. For decades, Canada's fighter transition was supposed to be procedural. The aging CF-18 Hornets would retire, paperwork for the F-35 would be finalized, integration into the broader American-led defense network would continue seamlessly as it had for generations. The acquisition was framed as technical modernization, an upgrade wrapped in bureaucratic calm. But when the Gripen entered serious consideration, the calm dissolved. The tension was never about whether the F-35 is capable. By every measurable metric, it remains one of the most technologically advanced combat aircraft ever built. Its sensor fusion and data integration are unmatched. Nor did Canada's reviews signal any desire to abandon NATO or distance itself from Washington. The United States remains Canada's closest military partner, bound together through decades of shared operations and continental defense under North American Aerospace Defense Command. What transformed this into a geopolitical flashpoint was precedent. The Gripen represents a different philosophy of power distribution. Unlike the F-35, it does not rely on American-controlled software pipelines. Its mission data, electronic warfare libraries, and weapons integration can be managed domestically. Once delivered, operational authority resides fully within the purchasing nation. There are no centralized update permissions required from abroad, no external veto points embedded in the aircraft's digital spine. That difference matters more than thrust ratios or radar range. Since the 1990s, the United States has refined a model of alliance integration that concentrates digital control while maintaining surface sovereignty. Allied pilots fly national aircraft, flags remain on tails, but software updates, sustainment ecosystems, and data management converge through American-controlled networks. This system produces extraordinary interoperability and unmatched ability for coalition forces to fight as one. It also centralizes authority. The Gripen sits outside that gravitational field. If Canada demonstrates that a modern Western Air Force can remain fully interoperable with NATO while retaining domestic control over software and mission data, it establishes proof of concept. It signals to other nations that dependence is not the only pathway to integration, and that possibility unsettles planners in Washington far more than any individual contract. Defense officials reportedly cautioned Ottawa about impacts on intelligence sharing and operational compatibility, yet beneath those technical concerns lay a strategic anxiety: momentum. If a core U.S. defense partner diversifies away from American platforms, others might reconsider long-standing assumptions. Countries like Finland and Norway, deeply integrated into NATO's northern defense posture, would inevitably observe Canada's example. Future NATO members would take note. Even long-time F-35 operators might begin asking uncomfortable questions about digital sovereignty and strategic autonomy. This is not about radar cross-sections. It is about the distribution of leverage inside alliances. Canada's geography amplifies the stakes. It defends the second-largest airspace on Earth, much of it Arctic, remote, and unforgiving. The operational demands are unique. Patrol distances stretch thousands of kilometers across frozen terrain. Infrastructure in the north is sparse. Weather conditions remain extreme for much of the year. Russian bomber activity near North American approaches has increased in recent years. As Arctic ice recedes, polar routes gain economic and military significance. In this environment, response time and availability outweigh theoretical performance under ideal conditions. Canada does not primarily conduct desert expeditionary campaigns. It safeguards frozen skies. Aircraft operating in Arctic conditions must start reliably in sub-zero temperatures. They must land on short or potentially damaged runways. They must function when supply chains are strained or communications disrupted. In high-intensity conflict, adversaries target satellites, fuel depots, and centralized networks. Systems built around uninterrupted connectivity become vulnerable if that connectivity fails. The Gripen was designed with precisely those assumptions in mind. Sweden engineered it under the expectation that air bases would be struck quickly in wartime. Its doctrine emphasizes dispersion. Pilots trained to operate from highways and improvised strips. Small ground crews can refuel and rearm jets with minimal equipment. It is a survival through decentralization model. The F-35 reflects a different philosophy. It achieves dominance through deep integration and sophisticated infrastructure. Its sensor fusion provides unparalleled situational awareness. Its stealth allows penetration of advanced air defenses. But its maintenance and software architecture rely heavily on a vast, coordinated support network. Neither approach is inherently superior in all scenarios. They reflect different strategic assumptions. The debate arises when those assumptions intersect with national sovereignty.
The controversy intensified when Washington signaled that if Canada reduced or canceled its planned F-35 purchase, the United States might expand its own fighter operations within Canadian airspace to maintain continental defense requirements. Under NORAD, cross-border operations already occur during threat interceptions, a Cold War framework built on mutual trust, but the suggestion that more American aircraft could patrol Canadian skies under American command if Ottawa adjusted its fleet size carried symbolic weight. It implied that defense capacity gaps would be filled externally rather than domestically. This came as projected program costs rose significantly over a short period. Prime Minister Mark Carney ordered a reassessment to determine whether the investments still aligned with Canada's fiscal and strategic priorities. Simultaneously, U.S. tariff tensions under President Donald Trump added economic friction to the broader bilateral relationship. Sweden's manufacturer, Saab AB, countered with an aggressive proposal: local assembly, technology transfer, and thousands of Canadian jobs through partnership with domestic aerospace firms. The pitch was not merely military, it was industrial. Retain expertise at home, anchor manufacturing capacity domestically, keep billions circulating within the national economy. The backdrop extended beyond aircraft. Recent American tariff threats against allies have reinforced perceptions that economic leverage now accompanies security cooperation. For Canada, this raised an unavoidable question: how tightly should national defense be coupled to systems controlled beyond its borders? The F-35 offers unmatched integration with American networks. That integration ensures seamless cooperation in joint operations. It also embeds Canada deeply inside an ecosystem managed primarily in Washington, from software updates to sustainment pipelines. The Gripen offers lower operating costs and greater domestic control, but potentially at the expense of some NATO standardization advantages. This is the dilemma: performance versus independence, integration versus autonomy. For decades, alliance management operated on an assumption of unquestioned American primacy. Smaller allies aligned procurement decisions with Washington's strategic architecture. That alignment ensured interoperability and political cohesion. But as technology becomes increasingly software-defined, the locus of power shifts from hardware ownership to digital control. Whoever controls updates, mission data, and sustainment logistics holds quiet influence over operational readiness. Canada's declaration that air sovereignty must remain national was not an anti-American statement. It was a recalibration of leverage. Inside NATO, the outcome will resonate. If Canada proceeds with diversification, it could normalize the idea that alliance membership does not require exclusive dependence on U.S.-managed systems. If it stays with the F-35, the current architecture remains reinforced. Either way, the episode exposes a structural tension within modern alliances. Integration generates strength, but also asymmetry. For Washington, maintaining a unified digital ecosystem maximizes coalition combat effectiveness. Fragmentation risks inefficiency. For Canada, maintaining sovereign authority over critical defense infrastructure reduces vulnerability to political or economic pressure. These objectives are not mutually hostile, but they are not perfectly aligned. The fighter debate has thus become a proxy for a larger evolution in Western security architecture. It forces allies to confront how power is distributed beneath the surface of interoperability. It challenges assumptions forged in a unipolar era, now giving way to a more contested global environment. In the Arctic, where distances are vast and margins for error slim, resilience may matter as much as sophistication. In alliance politics, autonomy may matter as much as unity. Canada's deliberation is ongoing. No final decision has rewritten the balance yet, but the mere act of openly reconsidering expectations has already altered the conversation. What began as a procurement review evolved into a strategic reckoning, not about which aircraft flies faster or carries more advanced sensors, but about who holds the keys to the code, who authorizes the updates, who defines operational limits, and how sovereign a nation truly remains when its defense systems are digitally intertwined with another's. That is why Washington reacted so sharply, and that is why Ottawa's refusal to blink carries significance far beyond a single contract. The future of alliance power may not be decided in air battles. It may be decided in software permissions.